Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to Fit Chat, Chit Chat. I'm your hostess, Devondria Sanchez, also known as the Fit Therapist, founder, owner, and client of Finding Inner Transformation, where we believe that a fit mindset is more than the physical, it's emotional, mental, and spiritual. In light of Mental Health Awareness Month, we are encouraging you to do something for self care and for others. So we know that we can cope, we can grieve, we can smile, we can laugh, but it is always amazing to be able to do that with someone else. So take care of yourself. Today's topic is Motherless Daughters. So we just are thankful for the opportunity to share our stories and our experiences. For those that are watching live, for those that are motherless daughters as well, or motherless sons, put in a comment, feedback, your experience, or a question for one of our panelists, and let us honor you too. Let us sit with you in empathy and thoughts and prayers. For those that are watching this in a recording, you can still put your questions, your comments, and your feedback in the chat, and we will swing that comment around to someone specific if it is, or I will come back on and answer it. So I just want to thank my panelists of beautiful women who are here, not only in bravery, but being courageous and, in my opinion, very vulnerable, myself included. So with that being said, I just want to thank our panelists, and I also want to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. So I am going to start with Miss Debbie. If you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and a fun fact. Thank you.
Sure. Good morning. I'm Deb Moreno. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. Grew up in Southern California. I have 5 children. I'm a retired Navy wife, and 3 of my 5 kids went to the military. I'm super proud of that. I work for the VA. I work in Washington, D.C. currently at the central office for Veterans Affairs. And a fun fact about me, or at least my family, is Michael Jackson filmed Beat It in my grandpa's pool hall in downtown Los Angeles. There you go.
Thank you, Debbie. All right, Miss Bridget. You're on mute. Bridget, you're on mute. There you go.
Hello. So my name is Bridget. I've been in Fresno for over 20 years, been married for almost 27 years, have 2 children who graduated from college and doing well, and where I'm also in ministry as well. And I've been a nurse since '93. And so that a fun fact about myself, I'll say I love balloons, flowers, and hummingbird watching.
Nice. Thank you. Khadijah.
Hello, my name is Khadijah and I am 34. Fun fact about myself is I like to do makeup as a hobby.
And she can slay, y'all. Let me just say that. The girl is gifted. Thank you, Khadijah.
You're welcome.
All right. And just so you know, I'm wearing purple. My mom's favorite color was purple. I mean, if we were get very just specific, lavender, but I don't own anything lavender. And that's a whole nother story that I have later on about how she will just show up in funny ways. So thank you, ladies. The first question I'm going to start off with, and I'm just going to be completely honest here. There is several women that I know that have lost their parent at a very early age. It seems like, I mean, everybody here on this panel, we're young women. Okay, listen, we young women, and we no longer have our mothers. And as I was thinking about women to be on here, I recognized there was quite a bit. I'm sure we could have had this panel full and have a waiting list if we just were being honest about those that don't get to celebrate their mom on Mother's Day or any other day. So I just want to start off with as most that you can give detail and being concise about, you know, your mom's story. Bridget, I'm going to start with you. If you could share Miss Gertie with us and let us know who she is and what we would wanted to know if we had the opportunity to meet her.
Yes, I would be honored to talk about my mommy. So my mom was amazing, as I know we were all say. She was the pillar of the family. She came from Texas, a family of 8. Okay, and so her whole dream was just to move to California and bring all of her family, which she still ended up doing, even though she got married and my dad started ministry and everything. But she got diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver while my brother and I were little, and was due to in the hospital, something they did in the hospital. So we dealt with that since we were little, off and on, going to the doctor, in and out of the hospital, having 50-50 chance surgery. But one special thing that I remember my dad sharing with us afterwards, that she said after she was diagnosed, that she's not going to die till she raised her kids. And they only gave her a few years to live, and she lived until after I got married. So God answered her prayer, so he gave her more, years than even the doctors were, thought possible. So by the time that she did pass, it was sudden for me, because by that time we were used to having her, you know what I mean? And my dad was saying, he goes, I think she's going to outlive us all. So I finally had got to the place right after I got married, I'm going to have my mom. And boom, right after we got married in May, in January 94, she died. We were married in May 94, and she died January 95. And it was sudden. We had just came back home from the holidays, and I was expecting at the time. And my husband had went back to work, and suddenly I got a call from my dad, and then that, and within 3 days she was gone. And after that, I miscarried. And then that's kind of where my journey began. It was like, it's the worst kind of pain you could possibly have, to lose your mom. That kind of pain is just, who fathoms that they're going to lose their mother. And so I did, thus developing the ministry. Motherless Daughter Connect is what I do. I did that. I've been doing this for several years now, and it came out of my own need. Because when it happened to me, I was looking for people to talk to. I was looking for, people that could relate, to what I was going through, and I really didn't have it. And I was going through all these things, and I had so many hats to wear. I had just got married, just graduated from nursing school, moving a new town, and all these new things happening, and then that happened. So I feel like along the way, I kind of lost my way. I feel like as women, we identify who we are through our mothers. And I realized that afterwards, that you feel somehow you feel your identity through your mom, your validation and who you are, and you're dependent on her, for direction, for guidance. You just assume that person's going to be there to walk you through life, and when that's suddenly taken away from you, however way that is for you, it's a journey, and it could be really, really tough. And by developing the Motherless Daughter Connect, that was my way of reaching out to other women that was going through what I was going through. And I didn't want other women to have to go through that alone. We can't take that pain away, but we could walk each other through it and encourage each other, give it advice, when it comes to certain things. So that's how I developed Motherless Daughter Connect. On Mother's Day, we do different things at church to celebrate our mothers. So in a nutshell, that's my story of my amazing mom. I miss her so much, but I'm a better woman. Thank God for the example that she gave me. So that was my foundation, that I'm here where I am today. So that's my story.
Thank you, Bridget. I'm going to actually have you talk a little bit later about the Motherless Daughters Connect on Facebook, in case there are some women who need that. Let me ask you this before I swing it around, is, being told when you were little that she was no longer going to live, and then having all of this time, were there times in between, like where she went to the hospital in a vigilance? Like, is this the time? Did you have any history of that?
Yes, I did. And it's funny you said it. I mean, I remember the first time an ambulance came to our house to take her out, and And, now I'm just realizing, because I have to go to counseling, that's why I have a lot of anxiety, that I didn't realize that I had, because can you imagine knowing that early, that your mother has this chronic illness and at certain time that she could die? So you grow up waiting, like, okay, is this it? Because you don't understand that it's too big, for your mind to comprehend. So I felt like, and I was the main one always there with my mom to kind of help. She wasn't an invalid or anything like that, but she depended on me a lot early.
Yeah.
And so, and because my daddy worked full time and he was holding it down in his area. So I was kind of like the next person to fall on. So yeah, I believe I developed a lot of anxiety, dealing with that. Always worried, always, is this it? Not knowing it. Now I understand it better. And it makes sense that because at an early age, we never knew, and always going to the doctor with her and all that. So it was tough.
Whew, Bridget, girl, you almost broke the ice early on me now. I'm trying to keep it together, y'all. I'm trying to keep it together. I'm not even going to play with anybody today. My feelings, I get to own and validate them on today. So thank you, Bridget.
You're welcome.
Keisha, tell me about your mom. We definitely have celebrated together in ceremony before, so I know a little bit, but tell us about your mom and her story.
My mom had several kids. She loved to play bingo. Bingo was one of her favorite things to do, and she loved spending time with her grandkids. Um, she developed diabetes when she was pregnant with me, and I am fifth. I'm the fourth child of my mother's kids, and it never went away after that. So she ended up getting a lot of chronic illnesses like kidney failure and congestive heart failure and things like that. So that took a toll on her, and she's fairly young. She passed when she was in her 50s. I lost my mom in 2012. She was in the hospital because she had to have surgery on getting a finger cut off because it had got gangrene. And so it was going to go start spreading down her hand. So they had to amputate part of her finger. And before that, she had already had a leg amputated below the knee. And so we were already kind of like, didn't want her to go into surgery, but we knew we needed it to make sure that she could survive a little bit longer. And she ended up getting hospital-acquired pneumonia and MRSA while in the hospital. And by the time the doctors found it, it was kind of like too late. And so when they were trying to pump her with antibiotics and things to combat the other stuff that she acquired in there, it was just too much for her heart, and it kind of like overloaded her heart. And she ended up passing several days after she had her finger amputated.
I would imagine you didn't expect that.
No, I had just left the hospital. I was visiting her that day. And I went to the store to get my brother groceries because my little brother still lived at home with her at the time. And we were talking, joking around. She's very funny, loves to be like ornery. So we're just sitting there messing around with her. And it's me and my older sister and her husband at the time. I left to go to the store to buy my little brother groceries. And got a call in the middle of Walmart. It was like, she stopped breathing. And I'm like, what do you mean she stopped breathing? We were literally just talking and joking around. And they're like, yeah, come back. And when I came back, she was out of it. And I believe like 2 days later, she never came back fully to. And that's when she passed, like, I believe 2 or 3 days later.
Yeah. I can imagine that, if you had, for lack of a better word, survived a leg being amputated, a finger didn't seem like that would be a big deal as much. So what was going on for you when you got the call in the middle of Walmart? Like, I know you said, like, what are you talking about? But was it this, that ain't real, like this denial, this shock? You
definitely shock, and it's kind of like confusion. So I was like, it didn't make sense how we were literally just talking, and she was like in good spirits, laughing and joking. And then minutes later, she like stopped breathing and kind of lost consciousness, and then never really came back. it was very foreign to me because I had lost relatives in the past, but and it's like we tried to prepare ourselves because we knew my mom was sick and we knew that these illnesses were not going to get any better. But we still weren't expecting her to pass as soon as she did.
Yeah. And that, how old were you when she passed?
20, I think 24,
24.
25.
And what was your mom's name, KK?
Ruby.
Ruby. That's right. Thank you, Khadijah, for sharing a little bit of Ruby with us. Jokester with her family, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Those are always good when we can really hone in on those positive memories of them, you know. And just as much as those memories like stand out to us, those are the same memories that could make us cry at any time. I know for me. So thank you for sharing a piece of Ruby with us.
You're welcome.
Miss Debbie.
So I haven't talked about my mom in a while, and you ladies are touching me. So my mom, Yolanda, was she was born in Los Angeles, and she grew up going back and forth to Mexico, and so she was a hot mess. She was this mix of modern day LA woman, and she was this very traditional Mexican woman. And so she was just all over the place. And she taught me that I could do anything I set my mind to do. I might have to try harder, but I could do it. I was the youngest of 5 kids, and my family went through a car accident, and my brother and sister died. And so she lost 2 children. And of course, that changed my family dynamics. But her strength and her love never did. Like your mama's, she was the glue of our family. Very traditional. A lot of, again, that Hispanic, those Mexican roots run deep in her. And then that modern day woman, Mia, you can do anything. And so she was my best friend, even as a teenager. She was just the person that I could tell anything to, and there was no judgment. It was just love. And she just made sure that I always knew that I was loved. And that's the best gift she gave. In 1990, she was murdered. And she was shot by a man she was dating. I was 20 years old. I was recently married. My baby was 3 months old at the time, and I married the military, and we had just went from California to Germany. I wasn't there. And my last communication with her was a letter saying how miserable I was in that marriage. And that's what she was left with from me. And that letter was found on her coffee table. She had just gotten it the day before she died. I'm grateful that because technology was a lot different in 1990 than it is now. I'm grateful that I did have a phone conversation with her before, and she knew that I was okay. But the one thing that I am so grateful for is one, empowerment. I'm a strong woman, and it's because of my mom. And I didn't have anybody after she passed away. It was just me. I didn't have anybody else to fall back on. I have family, but I don't have. My mom was an only child, and my parents were grandparents were still in Los Angeles, and I have 2 older brothers who survived the car accident. But it was just me. I didn't feel like anybody was there. I felt like an orphan, a 20-year-old orphan married with a baby. That's how I felt. But I had no regrets. And that's such a blessing. I had no regrets with my relationship with my mom. There's nothing that I wish I had done differently. There was no rough patch in my life where I was just such a jerk as a kid. We're not very to our parents all the time.
Yeah.
But I'm so grateful because I know that she's looking down. I know she's proud of me. I know she still loves me. I know that she's watching out for my babies. I'm so grateful that she got to see at least one of her grandchildren born. She's got a lot more now, but you know, she, and the thing with my daughter being born a few months before my mom died was that after the car accident and my brother and sister died, she didn't think she had that capacity to love somebody else like that again. And with the birth of my daughter, she was able to open her heart and have that love that you have for grandchildren. And so my daughter was just that blessing. And my mom went through all my maternity dilemmas and all that stuff, and we had such an amazing time and such an amazing journey, and I will forever be grateful for all the blessings that she's shown on me growing up, but also that I've kept now through all these. Now I'm 50, so those, I miss her every day, and I'm always so grateful when somebody can remember who she was.
Yeah.
And think fondly of her all these years later, and it still happens, and that just speaks to who she was. She was just a blessing, just a blessing.
Whew. Y'all, I ain't gonna lie to you. This was harder than I thought.
Me too. Why did you guys say yes?
Thank you, because people need to hear this, and people need to hear this. There was a recent case about a woman getting murdered by her brother-in-law, and family, right? This guy she's dating, family. I was supposed to be able to trust him, and violence. And so this trauma, I mean, knowing you personally, you definitely your mom's child, because you are bold, you are courageous, you do believe that. At least I've seen you do some amazing things. You want to do a med run? All right. You want to be the manager, take it on. And that speaks to your mom's legacy. And I'm just blessed that we get to see Yolanda through you. And it's the trauma that she went through. It's tragic to lose her own babies. And I remember I used to tell my mom, when she said, she would go around the house and say, "Don't cry for me when I go to glory." And I hate when she said that, because I'm like, I need to go first. And she said that is a mother's worst thing to experience, is for her child to go before she does, or any parent, I would imagine. And so to experience that, and then to get a chance to not relive it, but re-experience through your baby, even if it was for just 3 months. That's just awesome. And I didn't know all the particulars about your story, because it's not something we just talked about. A lot of times it was like, Mother's Day, go to your office, go to my office.
Yes, let's not make eye contact, Dee. I can't.
Let's not. Let's not at all. But thank you for sharing your story. So my mother, Cynthia, just amazing woman. Like, I literally, for a very long time, try to live my expectations and standard through who I see. And I recognize recently I really can't, because we're just different people, although there's a big part of every piece of her that I am. And she was bubbly, she was charismatic, she was funny. That was my girl. That was like my best friend. I know that's the theme going on, on this panel. Best friend when I didn't even know it. Like, I didn't know it till I was older. When you're younger, like you, Debbie, made her life a little bit harder than it needed to be. And she can love on you and still snatch you up at the same time. And so when she was in her late 30s, I don't really remember, because my mom didn't talk a lot about what was going on with her health. I just know, next thing you know, it seemed like she was getting one lung removed. And there was so much scarring on her lung. And she was diagnosed with idiopulmonary fibrosis. And it's environmental. I know there's more susceptibility if there's some genetics, but it's environmental, of what we know or what we've learned. And it just got worse. And my mom was a little bit overweight, moderately. Let me say, she would be like, listen, just tell the truth. Okay, she was overweight. So that didn't help with her breathing, but she was at a catch-22, so she couldn't breathe, so she couldn't really work out, couldn't breathe. And then in her best efforts to, be on every diet under the sun, that's probably where I get it from. Because listen, one week she on Nutrisystem, the next week she was on shakes and cabbage diet. I'm like, listen, what we doing? And next thing you know, it seemed like when I got midway through college, so she was in her early 40s, she was dependent on an oxygen tank. And I still didn't think it was that bad. I know she was embarrassed by it. People would look at her, and I can remember being at the mall one time and this kid just stared. And I remember going, what are you looking at? I'm like, Mom, you can't be doing that to the kids now. She was like, well, I don't know what you looking at. It just was embarrassing to her. And to be young and to need oxygen. And by the time I got home from college, she was definitely dependent. Like, she went to work, they had to deliver an oxygen tanks at work and at home, and they had to be changed out. And she just slowed down quite a bit. And even though she was a young woman, she wasn't operating like such. And she did her best to still move around and do things. She then became dependent on those little scooters when we were out, because walking from the car to the front door became excruciating. And then I was already military wife as well. I'd already moved away to South Carolina. So my aunt, Teresa, her sister, who I absolutely adore, retired and came to take care of her sister. And my mother's mom died at 47. My mother died at 50. And I remember coming home to visit one day, and because she had said, I think I'm going into hospice. And I'm like, hospice? No, you don't need hospice. And when I went to see her in that April, it was a different look. It was like, I'm tired. Like, I'm tired. Like, I'm tired of fighting. And that was a different look than I seen before, where before it's like, I'm sick, but I'm still push. But she was tired. And my friend, Tanyel, who's also a nurse, says, D, she was there. She came home with me, and we were childhood friends. She goes, she's giving away stuff. And I just want you to know, when they start giving away things, they're ready. And so, okay. So then in May, when I went back home, I told my husband, I gotta go back and live with my mom. And he said, I know. So he went on deployment, and I packed the kids up, and all three of us came and stayed at the house. And I just remember, she would say that, like, don't cry when I get to glory. But one of the days, my aunt calls me and says, get to the house. She had a seizure. She's never had a seizure before. And when I got there, they were trying to get her to walk. They couldn't go in and get her, the gurney, through her room door. They were trying to get her to walk from the bed to the door. And she just could not breathe. And she got really scared. That's when I knew she wasn't ready. It's one thing to say it, but it's one thing when you're faced. And I knew at that moment that she knew that this was time. And she had told me the night before that she had seen her dad and her mom in her dream. And the song, If I Can Dance with My Father Again by Luther was playing. So I'm like, Lord, okay. but like I think Khadijah said, you never prepare. You can never really prepare, even if it's in your face. And so they got her there to the hospital. Long story short, just like Khadijah, I didn't expect it. She went to the hospital. It was change of shift. I was talking to her, and while she was still coherent, and they did change of shifts. So I said, you know what, it's going to be about 30 minutes. Let me run to the house, which was 5 minutes away, and change my kids and then come back. By the time I even put my son in the bathtub, they said, get here now. But I still, in my mind, thought it was going to be like the movies. You know, you take care of your brother and you feed the chickens. I don't know what I was expecting, but whatever it was did not go down like that. And I remember running my cousin. I was getting ready to run to the hospital because it was close enough, like full sprint. He said, no, I'll take you. So he's running red lights. Shout out to Antoine. Thank you. I will always remember that. He drops me off in the front and I'm running, and security's like, ma'am, I need you to stop running. I just remember looking at him yelling, she's dying. Leave me alone. And I get there and I'm like, it happened like this, where I looked and said, how's her oxygen tank? How is she breathing without it being on? That's how quick it was, because there was the window where I looked and my brother just grabbed me and just broke down. And that was it. That was it. And shout out to the military. The ombudsman got my husband home the next morning from Korea. The next morning, they allowed him to leave when the doctor said, I don't anticipate 24 hours. And I still didn't believe it. Like, no. But he was right. He was right. And, you know, it's interesting because I rarely, like you, Debbie, tell that story. And, but it, you know, it still like plays out so much in my mind when you gotta, like, that's the reality of the loss, but that's not the reality of our memories with our moms. And so thank you all. And I knew, I was like, listen, let me come with tissue because I know it's gonna take me out. With that being said, you know, there's these stages of grief that I'm sure you all have heard about. I wouldn't, you know, Debbie, I know you've been in mental health for a while, and Khadijah, you as well, and Bridget, the work that you do, you know, Kubler-Ross talks about the 5 stages that people go through. And I think since then there's been people in 7 stage, 8, 9. I'm like, how many stages we got to go through, Jesus? Because listen, I'm at my last wit on this one. But the stages is shock and denial, guilt, anger, sadness, and then they believe you come to an acceptance piece, an acceptance and growth. And they believe that you can go through these stages back and forth at any given time. I heard Debbie when she said, I have no regrets. That is that's a rarity. And so I'm going to pose the question to anyone on the panel, if there was ever any regrets or guilt.
Well, I would have to share that, you know, I kind of felt like Debbie in a sense that, you know, because I was there all the time, you know, so I gave a lot of myself to my mom early. As a matter of fact, a lot of people told me, Rita, you have a really unique relationship with your mom. You've done more than I've seen most people, you know, and it made me have that even a closer bond. And my mom was the type that, like Debbie had mentioned, my brother and I, we would talk to her all night and she would never get tired. It doesn't matter how she feel. That was like our counselor, you know, we would talk to her. But right before she passed, we had went to surprise her because I had just got married in May 14th in 94. We surprised her for the holidays because for our family tradition, we would, you know, see the new year in, you know how that was when if you're going to church and stuff, we would go. So that was like our thing, right? So we were going to surprise her. We made it look like we weren't going to be there, right? She goes, so we made it out. I made it out there first, and I was like 2 or 3 months pregnant. And my husband, he came later because he worked for PG&E at the time. So we ended up surprising her, and she just kept saying, I knew he was coming. I knew. I'm like, and that's the way my mom was. You know, she was very intuitive. She just like knew stuff. And so we saw her, we went back home, and that following week in January, when I called, because I called her every day, literally every day. Sometimes my dad would always sing, "Never let a day go by," because he knew we talked every day.
Mhm.
So my husband went back to work. I was home. We had just made it back home. Hadn't even unpacked yet because I was going through the nausea and vomiting. And I came home and I did my routine call, and my grandmother said, "Oh, your daddy just rushed her to the hospital." And, you know, mind you, we grew up her going to the doctor and stuff. So I'm like, okay. So I'm not like freaking out. I'm like, okay, mommy's having a bad day, you know. So the day goes by, I call back home, and then I hear from my brother. So I'm like, okay, he's at home. So, okay, mom's going to be okay. So hours go by again. I call. Next thing I know, my daddy calls. And, you know, being as close as we were, when I heard his voice, I knew it was bad. I had a sick feeling in my stomach. I said, oh no, this is it, you know? And so I was home by myself, and I didn't know how I was going to get out there real quick. She was in LA at Kaiser Hospital. And I thought, how am I going to get to LA? And, you know, so I'm freaking out. You know, it was raining and I'm by myself. I'm pregnant, nauseated. So I remember my husband always telling me, if anything ever happened, call Pastor Perry. That was who our pastor at the time at Powerhouse. So I called him. I said, hey, my mom's, before I could even finish, he said, we're on our way. So when they were on their way to pick me up, and then I called my in-laws in Bakersfield to say, hey, you guys, if my husband calls, can you let him know I'm on my way to LA? My mom's sick because I couldn't reach him. So they called me back and said, well, Bridget, when you get to Bakersfield, we will drive you to LA. And that was a blessing because I was out of it. I mean, I remember when Pastor Perry and his mom took me to the train station, my mind just started reminiscing. And nothing happened yet, but I just, you know how it is, you just knew. So all the way on the train to Bakersfield, all these thoughts just come to my head, and then they picked me up. So it was a good distraction. So we were all talking, and before I knew it, we were at LA. I jump out the car, rush in the hospital, and it's all these people, you know, because, you know, we were part of the church and stuff. So I beeline to the hospital, you know, to my mom's room. I'm like, I need to see my mom, and wasn't expected to see. She was already kind of unconscious. She was already intubated. And I thought, oh my God. And so I went into nursing mode. I just wanted to be there for my mom. So in that moment, all I thought about was her. And I stood by her side. And then when everybody left, I told my dad and my brother, I said, you guys go home. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stay. You know, you guys go rest. So I stayed next to my mom, and, you know, I just rubbed her, looked at TV. They had given her a bath. And the part of the regret is where I get to this part is because when she had asked me to come back, because I was like, Mom, you know, Kevin's gone, you know, I'm like, I'm not, she said, why don't you come back out? You know, you can stay with me. And I was like, you know, I was sick, you know, I was nauseated. I didn't feel like going through all that, trying to travel back. And I said, no, Mom, I'm like, I'm just going to stay. And so I regretted not going back. But even though I knew in my mind, logically, Bridget, you were just out there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And you're pregnant, you're by yourself, you know, so it's okay. But I held guilt with that. And then, but I was happy I was able to be at the hospital with her. And they had just given her a bath. The doctors, the nurses were rushing in and out. And I looked, and I was in nursing school already. You know, I already had graduated, and I was already a nurse. So I knew something wasn't right, and they weren't talking to me. And I looked, and I was like, the doctor comes in, and he said, does she have a pulse? And I'm by myself, you guys. Nobody else was around. And I'm like, what? And, you know, and I'm like, oh my God. So I got up, I walked out, and mind you, I grew up depending on my parents. You know, I'm like, never need for anything. And I come out, and I'm by myself, you know, and I for the first time in my life, my parents never changed their number. I could not think of their number. I could not think of the number to reach my dad. And I just stood there, and I thought, oh my God. I was like, how am I going to make this call? And when I call, what am I going to say? So I called and I said, Dad, I said, you need to find yourself, find yourself getting here. And that's all I could say. I didn't know. Okay. Then he clicks, he calls back. Do I need to call your brother? I said, yes. Click. And I'm staring there freaking out like, what am I going to do when they get here? Because I'm still there by myself and they're working on her. And I'm like, my dad gets there, comes out of the elevator. My back was turned. All of a sudden, I felt this weight on the back of my shoulder. And from that moment on, it was like already my life was just turning.
Yeah.
And I just thought, oh my God, and we went in the room and then the rest of the family came and we had the meeting with the doctor and we said, you know what? She already said that she didn't want heroics. And they already had put the tube in without asking my dad. So we're like, no, we don't want nothing else. She didn't want to. Yeah. So they stopped and I remember going in the room looking at her and I remember standing over her and my brother was next to me. And like you were saying, Charles, like I knew she was ready to go. And God gave me strength to say, I looked at her and said, Mom, it's okay. You did all you could do. Because I knew she would hold on and she would be there for us. If I would have messed up and just started like, oh, Mom, you can't, she would have tried to fight to stay. And it wasn't fair because she already had fought for over 20 years. And I could feel in my heart, the Lord said, let her go. It's time. And so I said, Mom, I said, it's okay. Me and June will be okay. And I remember it was like an out of body experience because I'm looking at my brother and he's looking at me like, what you saying? But something inside said, let her go. Just let her go. And then, when they stopped, when they let her, the tube kept going because she did stop. And I remember looking at her and I said, you know how your mind plays tricks? I looked at the doctor. I said, can you stop that machine? I said, because I need to know for real that she stopped, So he turned the machine off. And then when I looked at her and I knew that she was gone, I lost it. I fainted. I fell backwards and someone had caught me. And I'll never forget the ride home that night with my daddy. It was the darkest of dark nights. You know how dark that is. Like it could be daytime, but it's like dark. It's like time has suddenly stopped. Everyone else is moving, but you're just stopped. And I'm just like, I cannot believe this is happening to me. My mind but I just remember that I kept saying to myself, I wish I would have gone back. You know what I mean? I wish I would have. Why didn't I just go back? But it took me some years, but I eventually gave myself a break. Bridget, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay. You did go see her. You went and saw her for the holidays. You just got back. But it took me a while to let it go for myself and not put that on me.
Yeah. Thank you, Bridget. Yeah, I mean, you hinged on regret, shock, denial. I think we've all kind of played around with that. Shonda says your mom's blessed this world with the same beautiful women. Y'all are amazing. Thank you. And our hearts go out to you, Shonda. I know you're also a motherless daughter. So blessings to you, my friend. Alicia, you nodded your head when we talked about regret. Is there anything that's
I wouldn't say regret in the sense that I didn't learn everything that I could have learned because I was really adamant growing up about not being a stay-at-home mom, not being a homemaker. I was gonna be out. I was gonna have a career. I was gonna have a job. I was not gonna be in the house. So I think my regret, I guess, in a sense, is from not really learning like all the recipes, the cooking, and the family histories and things like that. But in the midst of trying to prepare myself, because she was sick for so long, there's times that she would call me and she's like, well, can you just come rub my feet? She always had swelling in her feet and things like that. And then at the one point, it was just the one foot. Or like, can you come give me a bath and things like that? Because she only had one leg, so she was bound to the motorized wheelchair also. And I would tell myself, even when I didn't want to do it because I had a sibling that lived at home with her, I was like, there's gonna come a day you're gonna wish she would call you and ask you to do these things for her. So take the opportunity to do it now and do it like, not with a gleeful heart, but like without having to like, oh, I'm missing out on doing this because I have to go do this. So I'm really glad I had that thought process early on to think of that, because there are times where I'm just kind of like, man, what I would do right now just to hear her call me and ask me to come do something for her. But a lot of the things one of the main things that I remember was a conversation we had a little while before she had passed. I was struggling. I've been on my own. I think I moved out like about 19, 20. I had my daughter at 18. And so then I moved out, and I was just struggling. All my bills were paid. I worked and I was taking care of my kid, but I didn't have a lot of help anywhere else besides with my family, with my mom. And I called her and I was like, I'm just tired of struggling. Like, I'm tired of like living paycheck to paycheck. And she was like, well, just know that you're struggling now because you're working towards something that's going to be like a greater reward in the end. So like, just hold on and fight through this struggle to make it to where you're really trying to be. And that was something that has really stayed with me ever since then. And it's one of the main things that I remember on a day-to-day basis when I'm having a bad day or something. I'm like, you know what, this is only temporary. It's going to be over. We're headed towards something else. So just be okay with that, work through it, and everything's going to be good.
That's beautiful. Wise woman, Miss Ruby.
Absolutely.
But I could see that, right? Like for me too, I think when it comes to that regret, I remember my husband saying we were getting a gas station in South Carolina. He said, listen, I love your spaghetti and tacos, but can you get your mama's roast beef, her cabbage, her dressing, her turkey, her peach cobbler recipe? Can you get all those things? So if it wasn't for that man, like, I'm not living off hamburger helper up in here. And I mean your mom's good food, but I'm getting ready to leave her. So that kind of forced me to get some of the recipes. But like you, I do have that regret, like not getting some of that extra stuff. Um, Debbie, when we talk about stages of change, and I can't even imagine. Let me just not even fake like I can imagine knowing what that experience would be like. You know, when you can kind of say, oh, they're sick, and, you know, the brain wants to really find resolution. And we can resolve by, okay, they had diabetes, they had cirrhosis of the liver, idiopulmonary, you kind of got it. They were struggling so much. But when your mother was violently taken, um, I'm going to go ahead and go to anger in the stages of change. Tell us, what was that a predominant stage for you?
Yes. Yeah. So that was my first stage, is because I knew the person she was dating at the time, I just never liked. And Dee, you've known me for a long time. I am who I am. I'm very transparent, and I was even worse when I was young. My mom used to tell me, Mija, just tact, just a little bit of tact. And I felt that would be hypocritical if you didn't know how I felt about you. If I didn't like you, then I had to share that. And I didn't like this man. I'd never liked this man. And like I said, I was in Germany when my mom was murdered, and I got the Red Cross message, and all they would tell me was that my mom died at home. So I called my brother Raul, and the first thing I said when he answered the phone was, he killed her, didn't he? And he said, yes. My brother said yes. And I was so angry. Because she was an amazing person, and not just because she was my mom. Of course, we all love our moms, and our moms are amazing to each one of us. And I hope that my children feel like I'm an amazing mom to them. She touched so many lives, not just mine and my brother's, but just so much. She was a good person, and he took her, and he took her selfishly because she was ending a relationship. And so it's just difficult to reconcile that, and it took a long time. But I will tell you, one of the things that is just because I'm a spiritual person. I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. And I felt her presence about 3 days after she died. And her presence told me that she loved me more than anything. And she wanted me to be happy more than anything. And that I have a lot to be happy about. I was, even though I wasn't always happy in that marriage, I had a good marriage. I had a beautiful little girl, and I needed to be present for her. So with that, it wasn't that the entire anger had to went away, but there was a resolve to it, because my daughter deserved relatively healthy mother. She didn't deserve an angry daughter who lost her mother in a very violent, selfish way. I chose to bring her into this world. She didn't sign up for that. And so it was my job as her mother to do that. And my mom gave me that through this vision, through this presence of just saying how much she loved me, and that helped. And it didn't mean that the anger went away, because it stayed for a while. And then it resurfaces, like you said, Dee. It resurfaces. Those cycles come and go. And for me, it's been a long time. It's been since my mom was murdered in 1990. But you relive that. And for me, there was parole hearings. And so those parole hearings, I wrote letters every time. My mom's friends wrote letters every time. One time I wasn't notified. I didn't write a letter, and he got released. And that anger came back, because part of his release was that his mother was old and dying. And so, he should be able to get out of prison to take care of her. Well, I'd love for my mom to be old. I would love to be able to go take care of my mom, just like you ladies were blessed to have. And I don't know if it's worse to watch your mom and know, like you said, Dee, you're in a denial. I think Bridget, you said that too. There's a denial, so but it's hard to process that. I don't have that. I don't know what that's like. She was stolen, and I remember being in the airplane coming back from Germany to back to California, and there was a passenger who had talked to my ex-husband about, where we're traveling, just with people on airplanes. And he said that his mother-in-law had died. And I was so angry at him for saying that, because she didn't die. She was murdered.
Yeah.
It's such a different experience.
Yeah.
And so anyway, when he got released, or I was notified about his parole him being put on parole, I was angry all over again, because I don't have that. I don't have that. My grandparents they can't go see their only child. They can't watch her grow old. She can't watch them get older, and she can't help them. And so we lost that. And so as soon as my mom gets released, then he should get released. And now that is where my anger has stayed. But then again, I try. It's not that I even try. It's she's with me. She's still with me, and she wants so much more from me than that. And that doesn't define her. That's not who she was, and that's not what she gave. And so I have that. And again, it's just I especially now, as going as a mom, and that's what I would want for my own children. And I don't know how she did it. I have no idea how she did it, but she did. And I am forever grateful that she did. But those stages, the anger, the grief, the loss, they don't go away. It's a wax and wane.
Yeah.
And you cycle through the years. And sometimes it's more difficult than others. There's sometimes where I'm fine. And then there's sometimes when I'm just all over the place.
Yeah.
But it's my life now. And it's what I know.
Whew.
I wanted to say something too, kind of tapping off of what she just said. The night before my mom's funeral, I had a dream about my mom, and she told me she was okay. And that gave me such peace, because I was very, very close to my mom. We were best friends too. And that gave me such peace, knowing that she said she was okay and that everything was going to be okay. And in turn, that helped me. My older sister, she's the one who took care of everything, because I was a complete wreck. I could not do anything. I was able to share that with her, and then in turn give her some peace, because my mom said she was okay. And it's like strange, because in those moments now, when you need that little bit of comfort, I have situations like that when it's just like peace, like calm, like it's gonna be okay. And it's really it she shows up. She shows up in different ways right when I need it every time. And
Yeah.
that's really it's really amazing.
KK, you went right into my next question, and Debbie opened it up. So thank you, ladies. I'm gonna read the comments real quick before I move on. And I told you guys earlier, I do not have context on my glasses. So Angelique says, thank you all for sharing your personal journeys. The blessing in the various life messages that you're sharing will empower someone. Truly touches my heart in a mighty way. Just thank you, thank you, thank you. And Cassandra says, no, they don't not go away. I still deal with changes. My mom has been gone since 2008. Thank you, Cassandra, cousin. And Tyrone, my honey, says, how do you find balance in amount of time that you visit their final resting place? What do you think is too much or too little? And thank you for mentioning that, Tyrone. I'm actually going to answer that right after I address the question I was getting ready to, because that is one I was going to bring up as well. But Debbie mentioned spirituality, or religion, whatever people decide on, or however that is. And then KK went into, it was okay, I had this dream, and you got comforted by the vision. And Bridget had, mentioned just kind of like when she was going through the process and her dad being there, and, giving herself permission to no longer hold on to that. That's all to me is spirituality, when you can come to that place despite the situation, despite trauma, despite loss and grief. And like you, Bridget, when you said something inside of you said, it's okay, let her go. That happened to me on my mom's last bit of coherency. I asked her, could she hear me? And she nodded her head, and I started praying. And let me tell you, where I'm now, I was not in 2006. So it was the Holy Spirit, because I said, Mom, you are amazing, and it is okay to go. It is okay. And that was not me, because the flesh was like, baby girl, hold on, because this getting ready to be Thanksgiving and you cooking. I'm gonna need that dress, like that. I knew that was not me showing up and talking. And literally, she became no longer coherent. Change of shift happened, and she was gone. So, like you, I think that was enough for her to let go, because she always, my brother was a mama's boy, trust me, and still is, because he still be acting. I'm like, mama or mama. But it was only us two, and she knew that she just treated me like this gentle flower, and we were best friends. Like you guys, we talked every day, sometimes twice a day. I did not just talk to you, what you doing? It didn't matter, right? But that was like her permission to let go. Fast forward that night that she passed, I just remember, no, I'm sorry. It was the night we put her to rest, her body. And I just remember I couldn't sleep, hadn't slept. And I would just start looking through her closet. I don't know what I was looking for. I had no idea. I was angry at everything. Not specifically God, not specific, none of that. It was just like anger was on me that I just didn't have my mom. And I started going through boxes, and I found journals that she had been keeping since the early 90s. And you would have thought, girl, I stayed up all night reading. I now have 3 of my mom's journals. And a lot of it was painful to know how she really felt about us, about herself, about her situation in her life. So, but what it did do was it encouraged me to start journaling. So I've been journaling since 2006 as well. So I'm on like 6, 7 journals. She had 3. I'm on 7. And I'm not, if the Lord said the same, I'm not nowhere close to that, being done. So I'm going to answer. So the spirituality piece is what connected you. And I'm hearing you guys all had your own connection during a very difficult time. Isn't that amazing how our mamas still keep feeding us things? And fast forward about 4 or 5 years later, I had boxes, and I don't think I ever went through all of her stuff. Like, I remember the stuff she wanted to go. And one day I was sitting there and I said, I'm just going to go through one of her boxes. I was already crying about it. And there was this box, and it's a heart. I should have brought it out. So, like a box in a box in a box in a box. What was that? In a heart shape. At the very last box, there was these coins and this news article and a sticky note. And the sticky note said, if anything happens to me, give this to my daughter. I love her. And oh my God, here we go. And the article was the article she sent to me in my first year in college about a mom who had to let her daughter go to college, even though she wanted to keep her. And she saved that. And it was that in the coins. And, like she knew, like, if anything happens to me, give this to my daughter. And I still will break it. I left everything perfectly, and I will still break that out. It's like she just keeps giving back, whether it's in one of our kids or something. And like you all, like, my daughter didn't get to know her. My son was 8 months old, 9 months old when she passed. But, so she won't have that like some other people have. But it sounds like we're all amazingly thankful for the opportunity that we did get. So Tyrone says, how do you find balance in amount of time that you visit their final resting place? Or what do you think is too much, too little? So I'm going to rephrase that a little bit. Do you go to the resting place or not? Do you find comfort in where her body was laid? Debbie, okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, you're fine. Go ahead, Bridget.
Me being in Fresno, and then my mom resting places in Monrovia, so it's close to like between 3 to 4 hours away. So it's not like I could go every day to see her, but when I did, I remember in the beginning, I remembered when I would go there, I would immediately just start crying.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and what I started to understand is like, that's the closest I can be to her in the body.
Yeah.
So that was my way of feeling close to her again. You know what I mean? It was like, there you are, mommy. It's like something, the little girl in me wanting to hold her, wanting to talk to her. So I would always cry whenever I was in town. When I would go see her spot, I would just start to cry. It never failed. I would be there and I would just sit and just look. And I felt like I was close to her. I can't explain it. It was like a connection to her. And what I realized is like, that's a connection in the natural, in her body. Her body, what I connected with is down there. And so in the beginning, I would go when I would go in town. Sometimes I wouldn't even go because it was just too hard. Yeah. And I would avoid it. I mean, because going out there meant going to my dad's house and I couldn't do it. So it got to the point that there were long gaps before I would go. Then I finally transitioned where I didn't feel the need to go, which I thought, what does that mean? You kind of, am I losing my mom? Am I releasing her? Am I forgetting her? But it was like a resolve, I guess. Like Debbie had used earlier, was like, okay, I'm okay now. It's like, I don't know the right words for it, but it got to the point where I could go out there and I didn't have to go to her site because now I understand that she's always with me.
Yeah.
So I guess I felt when I would go to her grave, that was my way of being with her.
Mm-hmm.
And but then as time went on, I started to realize, she's with me all the time. So that's not where I have to go to have that connection. You know what I mean? So I was able to graduate, if you would say that, but there was a transition in me where I didn't feel like I had to go there to feel connected to her.
That's beautiful, Bridget. Debbie, I'm going to shoot that up question to you as well, especially being for such a length of time in Germany, not even being able to be in the States.
Yeah. So for me, because of the car accident happening when I was 9 years old, I grew up going to the cemetery. My mom spent a lot of time with my brother and sister at the cemetery, and she found great comfort. And so when she died, I expected a similar feeling, but at her viewing, when I got there, and this was my first time seeing her, a long trip back from Germany, is I saw her and I touched her arm, and it wasn't her. It was her body. It wasn't my mom. And I knew that her spirit wasn't there. So when I did go to the cemetery, and I tried it, and I would be there for a little bit, but that wasn't her. Her spirit wasn't there. Her spirit was already with me. So I don't know if I would have gotten there that quickly if I hadn't touched her body at the viewing. But for me, she was just always with me, and her body is still in Central California. And my grandparents are buried with her. They did not pass away in the same community. And so I had their cremains shipped to where my mom is buried. And so they're all buried together. And I thought that I'd feel a little bit more guilt for not going. And sometimes I feel bad that I don't go.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think about it again, and I remember again that gift that she gave me. She loved me. She was more than that. She was more than that. That was a shell of, figuratively speaking, that was just a shell. That wasn't who she was. And she left that, and that's okay. And she's with me. She's with my brother. She's with all of our children. And I feel her, and I know that. So and I'm grateful for that too, because Dee, you're right. I don't, from Germany to Virginia to Texas, back to California to Nevada to Washington, D.C. I mean, I'm not there. I'm just not there. And if I had to carry that burden, I don't know what that would be like for me. And it's not what she wants for me. It's just not.
Yeah. That's beautifully said. You're right. It's a burden to carry that. However, I do know culturally it is very different for different cultures.
Hispanic culture is
that's what I was going to say. The fact that she can post up, every weekend. Exactly. KK, how about for you, Khadijah? Like visiting the cemetery, what is that like?
My kid spent a lot of time around my mom, so my kid sometimes talks like my mom and sounds like her and says things that I'm like, where'd you even hear that before? So we do have not necessarily a tradition, but we do go to my mom's gravesite a few times a year. Sometimes my daughter will just ask to go, like she needs it, like she wants to go. For me, in a sense, I kind of feel like an obligation to it because I was so close to my mom, I would go to her house. So it's just kind of, I guess, kind of like a little bit of routine too, like just to go see her. And right out of high school and stuff like that, I always told myself like I couldn't go because my mom was so sick. I couldn't leave and go far away because my mom was sick, and if something were to happen, I need to be close by. And now that she's gone, I feel like I still can't go because then I can't go to her gravesite as often or as frequently whenever I would want to, or whenever my daughter would want to. So I guess I still kind of feel obligated in a sense to do that. And in the beginning it was hard, and now it's gone a lot easier, and we just kind of make the best of it. I do feel like it gives me some type of peace because my dad passed also, and he was cremated, and we don't have that. And so it's kind of odd. And it's not that we're forgetting him, but it's a little like we don't have that little thing to kind of go to now to, I guess, like spend time or be in his memory with. It's just kind of wherever we are. And so I think I don't want to stop necessarily doing that. I think it's something that, since me and my daughter have such a good bond, and we both had a good bond with my mom, it's something that we do together now. That is just something that we'll continue to do.
Yeah. And that's beautiful when you get to have your experience and connection with your mom in whatever way that looks like. And I know for me, I was going to the gravesite and I was rehashing the funeral. Like it didn't bring comfort, but I was going, it's like I was thinking about the hospital piece, the funeral, people falling out at the funeral, and then driving there. And it's like, what is going on? Like, I'm not feeling connected. So I was forcing myself to go. And then I feel guilty when I went to San Diego and didn't stop and visit. And then I finally said, I don't have to, finally kind of getting to where you ladies were, was like, I don't have to. Like, it's not causing me to be closer to. It's not causing me to spend time. And like, I've seen people, and Debbie is mainly your people. I'm just gonna say it. They breaking out dinners and flowers and singing, and they posted with their blankets. But I'm sitting in awe. Like, a part of me is like, why can't I have that? Like, why am I not having that? But I had to come back to who I was and my experience. But like, literally, I asked one lady, I said, oh, how long you been? She said 3 hours. I was like, I need a paycheck. You staying that long, you have to pay me. But she found comfort in that. And a lot of that is tradition and culture and things like that. And then about 2 years ago, right before COVID, so about 2 years ago, I was invited to, a friend of mine was visiting San Diego, and I was invited to a church. And literally the church, it wasn't until I left the church that I realized how close it was to my mom's gravesite. So I said, I'm going to go. Stopped and got flowers, because let me tell you something. I was like, I can hear you. You better put a flower on mine. And I get there, and I just boo-hoo, and I recorded myself talking to my mom, just how amazing she was, and what her grandkid. And I was like, I know you're moving, and I know you're here, and snotting and all over the phone. I mean, it was just beautiful. But I released that for myself as Bridget. I love that I graduated, right? And maybe somebody never graduated, and that's okay too. It's like, whatever connects you. But if it is like discomfort, there maybe need to be a permission to be okay with that. This is not it. So let me read some of these questions. One is, Cassandra, I have my mother's urn, so I have her close. So, not even thinking about that piece is, for those that don't have a physical place to go, but, cremation, being able to have that. I know, I just remember, I've never had a lot of experience with cremation with folks close to me. That just, I don't know, maybe the people just kind of want the burial piece. But I remember my uncle going to take his fiance or girlfriend at the time and just releasing it in the water, because that's where they love to go and enjoy themselves. So, whether you keep it or release it in their favorite place, I think all of that is appropriate. Before I get to the questions, Shonda says, I don't visit my mom's grave anymore. She's no longer there. When I need a moment with her, I just talk with her and God. And I pray and I cry. And before it's over, I'm laughing and at peace. Yeah. Most of my journal writings are to my mom or to God, or both, combo, mainly to God. But yes, whatever you find peace at, right? Teresa says, Mom is not close. She is in Seattle. After many years, I had the opportunity to visit her resting place with my son. It was beautiful. And I realized that my mom is buried near beautiful trees, and sister in San Diego is buried near beautiful trees. Yes, they are. That's my auntie, y'all. So let me read. Angelique says, do you feel that the loss prepared you in any way to be ready for anything, or equipped you to make better, hard choices for your life or for other loved ones? I mean, did it make you stronger in any way? And I will toss this to Debbie, and I'll let you open us up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when my mom was murdered, I had nothing. I had no one. I was married, but I felt like it was just me. And I was so grateful that all those years she told me that I can do whatever I set out to do. I might have to work harder than somebody else may have to work harder. Like it, and in a man's world, again, she's Mexican. So, I may not be a man, but I could still do whatever. I don't mean how you don't need a man, all those things. And so I had that growing up, and the strength of coming out of such a violent episode and horrific loss, and not feeling like you had anybody else. What other choice do you really have? And I had a child, and I had to be strong for her. And my mom my mom's story is, I mean, there's only so many minutes in this show, but when my mom would have her, when she turned 15, she had her quinceañera in Mexico. She got married right after that. She got pregnant. She came back to the States at 16 years old to have my sister, and left that life behind, had 4 more kids. I was the youngest of 5. By the time my mom was 22, she left my father, moved away from Los Angeles, went back to school as a single mother with 5 babies, and made something of her life. She was a hard worker. She went on welfare while she worked at the welfare office, while she went to school, while she tried to mother her children, you know, and I went to school with her. I remember as like 2 years old, I remember being in high school classes with my mom, you know, because she didn't have childcare. And so fortunately she could take me with her. And I remember some of those. I don't remember all of it, but I remember some of those things. And so her strength stayed with me, and her loss made me even stronger. And I remember my daughter is, she's 31 now, but when she was 13, she was diagnosed with a genetic disorder that there was no cure for, and she lost her vision. She's got some learning disabilities. And my brother told me, he said, maybe your life has been this way to make you stronger, to help your daughter get through what she needs to get through. And maybe that's it. But definitely these experiences build up on each other, and you can, I mean, it could be scar tissue, it can be a vulnerability, or it can be a strength. And I have this core philosophy, and Devondria and I have talked about this many times years ago. I think everything happens for a reason, good or bad, whatever it is. And that's just my belief. And you can either wallow in it and become a victim of those circumstances and let that really influence you, or you can say, you know what, this is horrible. What can I learn from this? What can I do differently? Or what is the lesson for me? What am I supposed to learn from this? Because this is in my life for a reason. And subconsciously, I think I had a choice, and I chose to be stronger. And I think that she gave me those things even through her loss. And even though those moments, like the 3 days after, and that visit that she gave me, that was the biggest gift I think I ever got from her. And it was because of that gift that I was able to be stronger. And I'm still her daughter, so I'm still feisty as heck. And I think that I always had that, you know. But the strength also comes from that. I think it might have even been like a parting gift. But definitely in my circumstance, I got a lot of strength, a lot of sorrow, but the sorrow is there because she was so amazing. And I was just so blessed to have that relationship.
I love that, a parting gift. Woo! I love that, because I got a whole bunch of parting gifts. Some of them I'm like, Mama, you could have kept them bunions. Okay.
I think we all do, though.
Look, you could have kept them feet as the parting gift. Okay. My husband probably will confirm that. Just a little bit of a shift to that question I'm going to ask. Khadijah, I'll start with you. Is what do you think from your mom that impacted your parenting? Whether it's something you've learned, something that just you noticed, what is it that has impacted your parenting?
Being more vigilant about making sure my daughter is self-sufficient and very independent, and I guess responsible.
Yeah. I would tell you those are all great and amazing qualities, because I think I found myself doing some of the polar opposite. I found myself a lot like how my mom was with me, more dependent. And, you know, we had an enmeshed relationship, my mom and I. I didn't know that then, because you don't know when you're in it, like how much I leaned on her for the decision, how much I needed her to take care of something. You know, me and my husband make a decision. Hey, Mama, is that right? Should we be doing that? You know? So I love that, because I didn't recognize I was doing that until, sometimes my daughter, she'll probably kick me later. Do I make nachos or burrito? I'm like, "My, just make a decision, you know? But I see the need for that because everybody here, we were young when our moms
Mhm.
passed.
I
So,
think for me, I think I'm more vigilant about making sure she's self-sufficient because of that, because I depended on my mom so much for a lot of things that it
mhm.
was hard for me to like go on without her. And this, even to the extent of having more kids, my mom was there and helped me so much with that pregnancy and my baby then, that I don't know if I'm fully capable of taking care of another kid from the little first stage to now, because I didn't have to struggle with that. Even though I was very young, my mom still was there and helped me tremendously throughout that time. I'm older now, so I'm pretty sure I could do it. Haven't taken that chance, but I I still struggled with that a lot because I was very dependent on my mom for so many different things. I'm trying to make sure that my kid is not as dependent and can be doing anything she wants to do without me, and makes those type of choices and decisions, from a good place, because she's sure of herself, and because she's sure, because I gave her that the space to become such an independent and sure of herself type of person.
That's so good, KK. I'm learning. I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. I'm learning still to do that. And I think it just came naturally because I wasn't aware. And a friend of mine, we had that talk that I had my mom on such a pedestal that, I just, when she died, it was like, whoa, what's happening? But what God reassured me of was that if she wouldn't have gone, you wouldn't have learned how to be a wife and a mom. And as much as that is like, he told me, I'm like, what are you talking about? I could do both. And there was no evidence to support that otherwise. So I love that. How about you, Bridget? Is there anything you noticed that impacted your parenting from the loss or from relationship?
That's really, really good. Yeah, unfortunately, on my end, when it comes to, I know it matured me, because I grew up. My husband said sheltered. I adamantly denied it, but now I can say that I was. So when you grow up with that, you get spoiled, And so when she suddenly left like that, it's like my whole world just changed, and I couldn't function. And so I dealt with a lot of depression, And so the process of that, it matured me a lot. Now that I look back, it matured me. The little girl in me, had to grow up. And then because of my mom being there for me when I wanted to give up, that strength that she was there for me, even what she was going through, she could have given up, but she was so focused on raising us that she denied herself, of giving up and having to go live with all that pain. So when I went through the worst of my depression, I remember one day my son came to my room, and I was laying one of those episodes, and he was young, and he came and opened up my door and said, "Hi, mommy, I love you." And he would always do that, like the time that it was the worst. And I knew that it was God using him, And then the worst of the times was one time I did actually attempt suicide, and that was because I kept going through the cycle of the pain of losing my mom, and I just thought that it was never going to stop. And I felt like I never thought that I would experience that, because being brought up in the church and everything, but I got there, and I thought I would be better off because I couldn't seem to get through the depressions. But that day, after I had took the pills that day, when I woke up, I felt like the Lord told me, he said, had that happened, your daughter would have found you. That day, it woke me up, and I said, Lord, you have to do something for me. I can't live like this no more. Something has to change, and my kids deserve better, and that they inspire me and they helped me fight when I wanted to give up. It was looking at them and knowing what I would leave for them, and so their lives helped me as well to know that, I wanted to do the best that I can to give to them until God took me and my time was up. And, so it matured me, it grew me, it helped me to become less selfish and to realize there are some innocent people that need me. If no one else in the world needs me, they need me, and they need me to be at their best. And that started the path of fighting, learning how to fight and not just retreat and take the easy way out. And what I mean by that, when I was younger, I would just always run to my parents. But it's like, Bridget, you got to grow up now. These kids need you, and so they are the ones who kind of gave me the strength. So it did a lot for me, matured me, growed me. And then here I am now, both of my kids have graduated college. And I look back and think that could have been a total different story, had I thought what I thought was best, and now knowing. So it changed me a lot for the better. Getting stronger and wiser, selfless, knowing a whole nother level of selflessness. I thought I was selfless helping my mom, but when you have children, it's a whole nother level of selflessness that you come to, so.
Ooh,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
take me out again now. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for your honesty, because it's real. Like, mental health is real. And when you are that connected to someone, and your story with your mom and connection sound very familiar to mine. We were like hip and bone, or ham hock and greens, whatever you want to put it together. Whatever it is, we were that. And I was very dependent. I mean, to the point where when I met my husband and we were dating, he was like, why are you still paying this girl's ABC? Like, she got a job. I'm like, you're hating right now. But yes. So, and then the beautiful part is we have you, right? And now you're helping other mothers and daughters and aunties and sisters with your group. And I'm going to touch base with that. I have maybe about one or two more questions. Trina says, losing on Cynthia was one of the hardest losses. My protector, I see her in my dreams. That's my cousin. And she's saying amen to you with all the things that you've learned through your experience. Debbie, the impact and the relationship as a parent, what have you noticed about yourself?
So I tell my kids, and I have told all of my children, tomorrow's not promised. There's just no, tomorrow's just not promised. And so as a parent, especially a parent of a disabled child, I taught my daughter probably a little bit more than the rest of them, because she did have a challenge that the others didn't have, is that you have to be self-sufficient. I can teach her to advocate for herself and be strong and resilient. But what happens if I were to enable her, then I'm actually handicapping her. Because what happens if I'm gone tomorrow and then she doesn't know how to take care of herself in a world that's not catered to people with her challenges? It's not, so she's got other struggles. And it definitely influenced my parenting, especially from both of my daughters. I want them to be strong, self-sufficient, self-reliant women, who don't need anybody to survive. I want, and for all of my children, I want whoever's in their life to be a choice. I don't want any of them to ever be stuck anywhere. I want them all to have good self-esteem, good healthy habits. I want them to be fighters and independent, and have a strength and resiliency. But most importantly for me, I want them to know I love them. And I want them to know that no matter what, if I'm gone tomorrow, that I love them and I'm proud of them, all 5 of them. And they're unique, and they make me laugh, and they make me piss me off. But they're all incredible, and they're all adults, and they've all taken amazing paths. And I feel like my daughter, the oldest daughter, the blind disabled daughter, she is definitely a product of my loss and the strength that my mom gave me, because she lives independently on her own. I don't help her. I live across the country, 3,000 miles away, and we connect regularly, frequently, several times a week, which is a blessing. And she initiates it, but she doesn't need me. She doesn't need me. She can do it. She can live this life. So if I'm taken from her, and if I'm taken from any of them, I'm not saying it's not going to hurt. It's going to hurt. We have a very tight knit family. I think that's the other thing that this has done. This loss is, my kids are everything. And I'm sure most mamas are that way too, but don't mess with my kids. Even as an adult, do not mess with my children. More so when they were younger, because they've got to learn lessons. But so you, for me, I had to learn to blend those two things, being that protective mother, and at the same time creating that independence and strive to want to be independent, and it's a hard struggle. Parenting is hard. It's the best thing, but it's the most challenging thing too. So for me, that loss definitely triggered a desire to make sure that my kids could stand on their own, because I could be taken at any minute. So survive and know I love you.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I'm working on all of that. I was just did a parenting class for an organization I work with, and I was talking about the different types of parenting. When helicopter parenting came, I went, ugh, ouch. I don't think that I'm totally that, but I see those traits, and I know that comes from a place of the loss. My mom was a big part of wanting, the glue, like everybody come to her house for Thanksgiving, everybody, and I find myself still doing that and wanting to do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, when it doesn't add up the way you're thinking, that, hurts your feelings, and then, it puts you away from faith. And I can hear a very good friend of mine talking about me right now, like, what word you standing on right now?
But we don't know that we don't know that when we're doing it too. I know for myself that I have all those tendencies, and I have loud and proudly displayed those helicopter tendencies. However, at the same time, I know that I also loud and proud displayed these independent type of skill set for all of them. All we can do is the best we can do. That's all we can do.
Yeah.
And it's coming from love. And I think
absolutely. That is, thank you. And that is the root. That is the intention. It's not to feed a need that I have, but to, want them not to make some of the mistakes that I've made, that I've noticed. And I think the biggest thing for me too is like, take advantage of what you have right now. Like Khadija said, the recipes, the history, those things. It's like, that's what I want my kids to take advantage of, because it won't always be. I won't always be here as much as I would love to be here. None of us know. I mean, who would have, for me, thought at 50, my mom was a young woman. My grandmother was 47. She was a young woman. So with all that being said, I know that, this lady told me a long time ago, she goes, when they're young, they rest in your heart. Your hands. When they're older, they rest in your heart. When they're young, they rest in your hands. When they're older, they rest in your heart. And I believe that I've done more praying than a lot for these babies since as they get older. So there's a part of the show I ask, how does it go down? And so it's just a quick snapshot. You tell me, how does it go down in your house, or how would it have went down? And I'm going to try to tailor this a little bit to your mother. So I want you to speak as if it was your mom, or how she would have responded in this situation, or something about her. So a kid is running through the house and jumping on the furniture. How does it go down, Bridget? What's Mama Gertie saying?
It's not happening.
All right.
No,
but
but she had a balance to it. She allowed us to be kids and have fun, but just has some boundaries,
Yes.
So my mom, that's one of the special things about her, that she loved to laugh. She could be very serious and focused, which my daughter reminds me of her, but she liked to have fun too. So that was the thing.
All right, Khadijah, how's it go down in Miss Ruby's house? Kids running, jumping on the couch.
It don't. You already knew better. You don't. That's something that's not going down at all.
She's sitting them down all gingerly and talking to them. How does it go down?
I think it's just a look. I
Yes,
think it's just a look like, you sure
right.
are you really about that life?
Right.
Cause I'm about that life.
All right, Debbie, how does it go down with Miss Yolanda?
Miss Yolanda had a look. That was all you needed. And if
Yeah.
I felt like she kept my hair long when I was a kid on purpose. Yank.
Right.
Man, but it was a look. You just,
Yeah.
it's like, that was scary enough. I didn't need anything else.
Yes, yes. Okay. Cynthia Walker, again, the look comes from somewhere. Like we had something to know that the look meant something. So we sitting here nice with our mouths right now, but I'll get snatched in a minute. Okay. Pinched, good little quick pop, just a quick pop. Not, she wasn't trying to make you leave the earth, but a quick pop. She'd let you know. All right. The favorite meal right now, if she could cook you any meal that she cooked that was your jam, how does it go down? What is that? I'm gonna throw that up to Debbie. What meal, hands down, your mama made?
So it's not that I can remember. She made a couple of things and she got creative, especially when I was little and my mom didn't have any money. And so there's a lot of just whatever. But do you know me? I don't like to cook. And that is one thing so what I would love is for her to cook rice and beans, anything, and just anything. But the basics, I hated that. I hated rice and beans growing up because it's what she always made. And now that's, that's what I want.
Yeah, yeah, yes. And let me tell you, I'm just gonna put a plug out there. Debbie's husband, that man can cook. God has blessed his hands. And that salsa, I will challenge you.
And he will trade you for peach cobbler. You know this.
I know. And let me tell you, when that man come back to California, Bridget, that favorite meal that mama made, that hands down, I'm on every kind of diet, but if she bring this in the house, it's been thrown out. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I have to say that our soul food, man, the mac and cheese was my favorite. The greens, cornbread, the pig feet, oxtail, the chitlins. Now that wasn't all the time, but one of a meal that a lot of people don't eat nowadays that I love the way she cooked it was liver and onions.
Okay.
She knew how to cook some liver and onions, and not where it's dry and tough. It was like just right. Oh my gosh! I mean, I think about that all the time. And Khadijah, I wish I would have took all her recipes and stuff, and also her homemade desserts. Woo! Talking about making it from scratch. Everything she made was scratch. Nice. So that was
Nice. Khadijah, you on a diet, but Miss Ruby decided to throw down on Sunday.
Definitely, probably either her fried chicken or her fried fish. Definitely. I was never a fan of greens or most of those other traditional dishes, but hog mogs too. That's something that no one else can ever make them like my mom made them. And that's something that it's like.
Where Miss Ruby from? Up there with them hog mogs?
She was raised in Layton, but her mom, grandma's husband that raised my mom was in the military, so my mom was born in Mississippi. So I think it possibly could have come from that area over there. But she was raised here.
Nobody around here making hog mogs. That's sure.
No?
Well, I'm just saying that's sure bypassed. That came through somebody's lineage. But That's awesome. Fried chicken, fried fish, and some hog maws. Mm.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yes. Well, my
I have a
mom.
question.
Yes, please.
Has anybody ever cooked something and was like, dang, this tastes like my mom made it?
Well, you know, we had a tradition in our family on chess pie. And it's real easy. Chess pie is so good. And my mom turned the recipe over to one of my aunts, and my aunt perfected it. Well, I finally learned how to cook it, and my son loves it. But I don't make it a lot because it's full of calories, you know.
Mhm.
But that I did make that, and whenever I cook it, that's when I feel the closest to my mom and my family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's a good question, KK. Debbie, look, I
I'll,
see you shaking no.
well, we know. We are already said we know how much I love being in the kitchen. I am an eater. I'm not a cooker, but I will tell you, because my husband's Mexican, and we have gotten into debates about what's real Mexican cooking, whether his mama style or my mama style. I'm like, this is not how my mom made it, and my mom grew up in Mexico, so I'm just saying.
Right, right.
So,
She gets to battle about the things she's not doing.
yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, my whole Thanksgiving meal is my mom's recipe. So that was one thing that, and that's probably why I really feel connected at Thanksgiving. I really like all of my family around because I make her dressing the way she makes it, her potato salad, her peach cobbler. That peach cobbler, that is my mama's recipe. Her mac and cheese, she started as a base and I've derived to my own landing, but she is the foundation of that. So yeah, everything Thanksgiving is my mom. It tastes just like her Thanksgiving meals. All right, ladies. Last question is: what would you tell someone who recently lost a mother? What advice? What coping skills? Anything that you believe that worked? I didn't really go into therapy or no therapy because that could be a whole segment on its own because it comes from a different place. So I didn't really want to, but if that's your experience and you think that will be helpful, I just want to know what could you lend someone as words of advice if they recently lost their parent? And I will start Khadijah with that.
For me, definitely feel what you're feeling and don't be afraid to lean on anybody, like support system. Like feel what you're feeling and give yourself that space to actually like feel those feelings and process them.
That's good. Yeah, feel it. And I think that's hard for people because, especially in my opinion, men, and that's a whole nother fit chat, chit chat, because, there's some other societal norms that maybe people feel they need to do, but feel that and support. That's what I've heard. Support system is huge during loss. Debbie, what would you tell someone?
I don't know. It's different when I've gone through this, but typically I don't really have an advice. I sit there with them, and I listen, and I'm just in that moment with them, and it is whatever they need it to be. And if there's something that my story can do to help them and how my experience was, one thing that I feel pretty confident about is mamas love their babies. And so that's one thing that I've known that historically I have shared is, just, how much your mom loves you,
Yeah.
and just be there with them and listen to their story and whatever I can do. And if it's nothing but listen, then that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Debbie. Find someone who has an ear to hear and maybe not necessarily advice, but just that could sit with you in pain. Not everybody that's comfortable for them. Some people have a really difficult time watching people in pain without feeling the need to fix it or feeling the need to give advice. But to have someone who could just sit with you, lean on, comfort you, and not say anything, that is very helpful too. Bridget, how about you? Can't hear you. There you go.
Yes. So one of them is just like Khadijah said, is I don't know if you guys heard that, but having a really good support system is very important. And also knowing who you can talk to and express yourself to. Not everybody will understand, because sometimes that could hurt, because we'll have expectations that family or friends, and some of them can't handle it, or some won't be sympathetic or understanding, and it could be hurtful. And so it's okay to separate yourself from people if you need to, as you're going through your healing process. Give yourself permission. A lot of times we don't give ourselves permission. Sometimes when you're going through some rough patches, it's okay to go and recluse sometimes. It's okay to say, you know what, I'm just not okay right now, or I'm not okay today. And I've learned to say that to my own kids. You know, I've been honest through this whole process with them, because they need to know they're seeing it anyway and they have to go through it. So just be honest, you know, and expect that you're going to go through a roller coaster. Because like you talked about the phases, and they like to paint, you're going to go through this, you're going to go through all over the place at any given time, because there'll be certain things that will trigger you. One minute you think you're fine, and then something new will happen, and you're like, what was that? You know, so expect a roller coaster. There's no set way that each person will go through, and that's okay.
Yeah. Bridget, can you give them your resource or where they can find you on Facebook, please?
Okay, yes, you can. I have a private page. I'm on Facebook as Bridget G. Salter Person, RN. And the page is Motherless Daughters Connect. And it's a private group, so I have to let you in. You're welcome to invite anybody to be a part of it. It's a private group. You can express yourself. We're there for each other. We support each other. We celebrate each other. We give advice. We answer each other, and it's available 24/7. You know, because we know any given time you can be going through something. So I wanted something where people know that there's some place that they can go 24/7, and someone will respond. If nothing was just showing you love, or hearts or something, but somebody will respond. And annually we do things as well, and do things throughout the year. So you're welcome to join or ask or be a part of it, or share it with somebody else that you think will benefit from that.
Thank you. And the words that I would leave with those is there is no right or wrong way to grieve, but there's healthy and unhealthy ways. So pay attention when the isolation becomes to the point you're not taking care of yourself. Pay attention when your normal 1 or 2 glasses of wine turn into 4 bottles. And I'm being a little facetious, but I'm being real at the same time, because sometimes we want to avoid the pain, or we want to drown it out with drugs or alcohol. And it's not uncommon for people to do that. And then it is a journey. And, the theme that I keep hearing here is that anytime I could cry, at any time I could laugh. Khadijah and I have had the opportunity to share a celebration where we let balloons, we release balloons for our parents. So those are great things that you can do to honor them. Maybe it's getting the favorite meal. Maybe it is going to the graveside with your kids, whatever that makes you feel comfortable and connected. And so you don't have to subscribe to rituals like, only because my mom, or only because this person, she did it this way or that way. It's okay to come from underneath that and become your own person. If you're anything like how we're all kind of talking, as we were super close to our parents, watch when there's a theme in your next generation, right? And I'm paying attention to that more, because I recognize I was really creating this dependency, especially with my younger two. And I don't want that for them. So we can love our mamas. And I put on Luther to cry sometime, and I put on Luther to celebrate, because she was going to change Luther. If you know my mama, she was like, Luther about to come up out of this, whatever he going through. So I today celebrate Yolanda, Gertie, Ruby, Cynthia, and all the women that are on our page who have lost mamas, that we sit with you. We love you, and we thank you for joining us today. Thank you to my panelists. You guys were amazing. Thank you for making me cry. That, those is healing properties, right? That cleanses the soul. And so I thank you everybody for joining in. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Finding Inner Transformation. Find me on Facebook or Instagram at Fit Therapist. The next Fit Chat Chit Chat is on Fit the Script, where we're going to have a faith series. So that starts Tuesday at noon of next week, and we're going to run that for the next few weeks. So thank you all for joining me. God bless. Take care.